Welcome to Moments with Marianne. I'm so delighted we're spending this time here today. We have a very inspiring show coming right up with special guest, Jonathan Hammond. And he's here today to share with us his new book, The Shaman's Mind, Huna Wisdom to Change Your Life. Now, Jonathan is a teacher, energy healer, shamanic practitioner, and spiritual counselor. Before beginning his work in holistic health and spirituality, he had a career as an award-winning actor appearing on Broadway and on television. A graduate from Harvard University and the University of Michigan, Jonathan is an interfaith minister and certified spiritual counselor. He also holds certifications as a master teacher in shamanic Reiki, in Cherokee bodywork, in Ho'oponopono, and as an ordained leader through Aloha International. So let's welcome to the show, Jonathan Hammond.
Aloha, Marianne. It's so good to be here. Thank you.
You know, what an honor it is to have you here and to talk about this book. And so we got to talk about this for a moment, because you have some pretty dramatic changes that happened that led you on this path. I'd love for you to share that with our listeners.
Yeah, well, I began my life, the first 40 years of my life, thinking that I was supposed to be an actor, and I did that for many years. I was a professional actor on Broadway. I did a little bit of television. And then around late 30s, I had just a series of messages and experiences, some of which happened on Hawaii, that really indicated that it was time to switch my life. There was a sense as an actor that I wasn't serving the world and I wasn't able to spend myself to the extent that I felt like I needed to, the extent that I felt called to. And so, despite the fact that I hadn't even paid my student loans from drama school, I made the very counterintuitive decision to begin a new path. And I had always had a very rich spiritual life, but it was never something that I thought I would do professionally. And I switched, and I became a healer and a shamanic practitioner and a spiritual counselor, and did a lot of training in terms of getting myself prepared for that new life. And the culmination of it is this book, which is my first, which you mentioned, called The Shaman's Mind. And just to say, I think that it's so important that, particularly at this time on the planet, that if anyone, any of your listeners, if they're feeling a call to, and it's usually counterintuitive, it usually is something where you're going against even what family or what society or what your community might understand. But if there's a call to serve the world, I think that the world needs lots of healers right now. Whatever healer looks like for each person individually, and if you're feeling that call, you're needed. And I think so many beings have incarnated at this time on the planet to be a part of this ascension of consciousness, this global change that's happening right now. And so, if you're feeling that, honor it, because it's there and it's part of your destiny.
So while people go on their spiritual path, it's interesting because a lot of times people will not, they maybe will stick with whatever religion they are, or maybe kind of delve into something else. What encouraged you to follow the shamanic path?
Well, in shamanism, what is shamanism? Shamanism, more than anything, is about the reverence of nature. So the reason why you would revere anything is because you're inspired by it, because it has something to teach you, because it shows you who you are. And when you behold nature, when you look at nature, you see something that is always expressing itself towards further growth in creation. Nature's always moving in a direction of growth and creation. You sense in nature that everything is interconnected, that everything is allowed. The forest. The forest doesn't turn on itself. It doesn't deny itself what is good for it. It doesn't deny itself what it yearns for. And so to be like the forest, to attune to nature and to revere what nature shows us as a template to show us how we're supposed to be, is really to follow the path of shamanism. And also just to say that from a shamanic perspective, it's not just the nature that we experience when we go outside, but that nature from a shamanic perspective also includes all the spiritual realms. The spiritual realms are, from a shamanic perspective, as real as the rainforests. So we're entering into that cosmology where everything is available to us, and where we want to do whatever we need to do to feel our own sense of that growth in creation, that we are nature ourselves, and that's coming through us in our lives. So that was why that path particularly called to me. It's a very inclusive path, and it exists for 100,000 years. It's even it has existed even before any organized religion, and so on some level, all the different faith paths are in some way informed by this very old and very natural way of being that is shamanism.
So what kind of brought your focus to Hawaii?
Well, I like I said, I had some really crazy experiences there, and which just were synchronicities. And when a synchronicity occurs, that means there's something needs to be paid attention to, that you're onto something, that you're in the right place. And I had many synchronicities out in nature in Hawaii. And then I had already been a shamanic practitioner at that point, and had a very full practice. But when I began studying the indigenous spirituality of Hawaii, what I discovered was a philosophy. And with shamanism, there's no set of scriptures, there's no set of manifestos to follow. You're kind of on your own. But there was a philosophy called Huna that came out of Polynesia, that originated in that part of the world, and there are ideas, principles in this philosophy that, if you follow, point you toward and help you see through the lens of the shaman's mind. That's why I entitled the book "The Shaman's Mind," because it's by adopting this philosophy, and it's very simple stuff. It's all stuff that you've heard before. I've just never heard it so elegantly put in one place. And so by following that, the philosophical constructs of Huna and integrating them is to enter into how to think like a shaman, how to see like a shaman, how to work with energy and hidden truth and hidden worlds, and our intentions and our thoughts creating reality, and through 7 very simple principles from the Huna tradition, we can all enter into this way of being.
So I have to ask you to share with us what Huna is, because I think a lot of times when people hear that, they may think it's something that it's not.
Yeah, it's very simple. So there's a lot to it, but the spine of it is our 7 principles, and the 7 principles are. I'll just kind of go through them briefly. So the first one says, and these are all based on Hawaiian words, 7 Hawaiian words that are unique translations from my teacher, Serge King in Hawaii. So the first principle says that the world is what you think it is. So that means that not just how you think about the world will determine your experience of the world, but that the world itself will physically and energetically shift based on how you think about it. So that means that what is going on between our ears is co-creating reality itself. So that means that we are each the author of our lives based on how we think. So that's the first principle. The world is what you think it is. The second principle says that there are no limits, meaning that it's a limitless universe. So that means that separation is merely an illusion. So if you think that we're all part of one great happening, that there's only one thing happening, you can even think of it as that we're all individual waves, but we can't disconnect ourselves from the ocean. And to enter into that is to enter into that we are each an inextricable part of this huge collective, so that what we heal in ourselves, we actually heal in others. So any beneficial actions that we take in our lives have a direct impact on the collective. So you can heal the world literally by not leaving your home if you're just working on yourself. So that's what that principle is stating, that there are no limits. We are not separated. And the third principle says that energy flows where attention goes. So what this means is that where we put our attention and our focus elicit the creative energy of the universe that will bring to us the nearest physical equivalent of whatever we put our attention and focus on. So not only do we create reality with our thoughts, but we actually get the help of the energy of the universe to bring that about based on the consistency of our focus. The fourth principle is now is the moment of power. So what this is just presencing us in the now. And there's a lot of talk about mindfulness and meditation and all of that. But what this principle is really saying is that it's about what you do in the now. You can only do anything. You can only access power in the now. You can't get wet by yesterday's rain. You can't get burnt by tomorrow's sun. The only place where you can do anything is right now. And so that brings us up to date with ourselves, and it's indicating to us that in any moment we can start over. So often we're slogging around with our history and carrying that around, and we can actually get up to date with ourselves in the present moment and heal whatever is in our history that may need healing, which we can only do right now. So that's what that principle is saying. The fifth principle is aloha, which just means that love's perspective is always a part of what we do. That every action and intention that we have, that we include love's perspective. Love is the only ethic in how we organize our lives. The sixth principle is mana, which is that all power comes from within. So that means the power to affect our lives, to change our lives, comes only through us. And what's really important about this principle is that it's really saying, stop caring about what everyone else thinks. Stop trying to assimilate. Because it is only by following our own individual inner directives that we create our lives. We don't find ourselves from outside of ourselves. And we're also conditioned to assimilate, to try to fit in, to keep up with the Joneses, to look a certain way. We turn on the television. It tells us how we're supposed to look and what our money's supposed to look like and what women are and what Black people are. And this principle is saying that those decisions are solely yours to make. That your truth comes only individually out of you. And then the last principle, which is maybe my favorite, says effectiveness is the measure of truth. So in other words, if something's true, it's because it works. And if it doesn't work, it's not true. So that means that if something doesn't work, no big deal. You can just try something else. So those are the seven principles, and they allow you just limitless possibilities and a sense of harnessing your own inner power, the power of the moment, the power of your mind, the power that your mind actually invites in energy that helps you create your life. And so to follow those is to learn how to co-create your life and to let go of the conditioned beliefs and responses we have that keep us from doing that. So that's just a real quick overview of the seven principles, but they're pretty magical.
I would say they are. I mean, you give that rundown and you look at the ancient wisdom that's held within it. And you're like, okay, well, this, it doesn't matter if it was 100 years, before or now or 100 years in the future. These are still principles that will hold some truth.
That's right. That's right. And again, you've heard them all before, and I think the problem with the problem, quote unquote problem, with contemporary spirituality is that we're brought to the esoteric wisdom. Esoteric wisdom is so available to all of us now, and it's my belief that the spiritual intelligences of the universe know what they're doing. And the fact that all of this wisdom is so available to us now is there for a reason. It's part of serving this collective shift on the planet. But I think in contemporary spirituality, a lot of times we're brought to this wisdom, but we don't actually use it. And if you discipline yourself to actually work with these principles or something like them, and you discipline yourself to really integrate them in your way of being, in how you organize yourself, in your relationships, in your community, you actually will effect change. But so often we believe it on the we believe it when we feel like being consciously spiritual, and then we forget about it. And it's so important that this becomes now a way of being for all of us.
I think a lot of times people feel very, maybe inadequate spiritually, going, okay, well, if I work on myself, how's that going to affect any change or healing within the planet without really realizing how everything's so interconnected?
That's right. It's so true, and it's so important that if we all just played our part, if we all just did our part, it's a very low bar. But if we could all clean up our own mess just enough that it doesn't spill over into the experience of another, it's a very low bar. But if we could all do that, it would shift the entire trajectory of where we're going, and it would clarify where we're going. And so it is the microcosm of each of us individually is the macrocosm. So you really do affect change just by living your best life, just by taking care of yourself, just by healing yourself. That has a substantive effect. And if we all just did our part in that, the collective would be beneficially changed. That's the nature of not only this philosophy, but actually the nature of reality. There is no separation. My Huna teacher Serge, he at one time he said, if you want to heal someone, think of them and you feel good. And that's really what this philosophy is saying.
I love that. I love that because it's really doing that work on ourselves that's really, pretty much affecting all this change that's happening.
That's right. And just to say, we have work to do on ourselves. We all have wounding. We all have negative patterns. We all learned mistakes about ourselves, mistakes about the nature of life based on how we were treated as children, based on even the difficulty of contemporary life. We all learned things that are not beneficial to us. And unless they're addressed, they remain on autopilot. And because the world is what you think it is, those negative beliefs that you have then manifest in the world. And there's practices in the book, one in particular, that really is about going directly into those parts of us that are wounded: the low self-esteem, the addiction, the illness, the I don't look right, the I'll never be, the I don't deserve, whatever those things are, and to directly look at them and shine the light of love on them, which is the reason why they were created to begin with, is because they were born of unlove. And so we actually use love on these problems in order to begin to let them go, begin to see them clearly, begin to recalibrate, so that we're not in these habituated negative patterns that then will ultimately we'll co-create out in the world.
So do you think a lot of maybe the negative patterns that people have been carrying with them and not really doing the work on themselves has brought us to the point we are here today?
Mm-hmm. I do. I think we can't know what we don't know, and we have to forgive ourselves for previously not knowing what we don't know. It's a source of needless suffering how much people are ashamed of past actions or things that have happened to them that were just based on innocence, based on ignorance, based on trying to get a need met, although not having necessarily the best way to do that. And a willingness to really take responsibility for yourself and for your contribution. In Huna we talk about taking 100% responsibility, because what we cultivate inside of us, in our hearts, in our minds, is the world is literally stuck with, based on what we're creating. So we take 100% responsibility so that because that affects the collective.
So in your book, you talk about Ho'oponopono, and
Mm-hmm.
I'd love for you to share how this dovetails with Huna. Maybe it just doesn't dovetail. Maybe it's just all part of one working piece,
Yeah. So Ho'oponopono, that's the practice that I just referenced. It's a forgiveness practice that comes out of Hawaii, and what you're forgiving is really the parts of you that stopped remembering that you are a spark of the divine. Any part, again, the illness, the low self-esteem, anything that obscures your own divinity. And so Ho'oponopono is about, Ho'o means to make, it's causative, and pono means right, rightness, true condition of nature. But Ho'oponopono is doubled, so pono, and so it means to make right more right, to become right with oneself and then become right with God. And so it's about removing that which obscures the truth of us, the actual natural truth of us, which is that we are all spirit beings having a human experience. We are all a spark of the divine. And if we knew that about ourselves, then what do we do with the divine? We worship the divine. And I'm not being hyperbolic in saying that the Ho'oponopono is about worshiping oneself back to one's own divinity. That's the nature of the practice, and I break down how to do that throughout the book. But that's what it is, because when we're well, when we're good, when the wounds aren't operative, we have so much more to give. Whenever healing happens in us, the inevitable response is to want to pay it back. That's just the nature of healing. That's what happens, because when you're touched by the divine enough to heal something that's deep and ingrained in you, the inevitable response is to give it back, is to help others to do the same thing. And that's why we think of, in shamanism, we think of being very full with ourselves, so that because in that fullness, there's a feeling of I can't help but, in terms of giving back to the world.
I think that's probably one of the better descriptions of Ho'oponopono for the Western mind that I've ever heard. So thank you. I appreciate you going over that, because I think a lot of times when we hear about Ho'oponopono, it's like, okay, well, here's this practice. It's done some real remarkable things. But when you break it down to what it really means for me, I think sometimes some of the translation can get a little lost.
I think it can. And, I think that it's, I was introduced to the practice, and it made so much sense to me. And the very strange thing about Huna is that it just merges with my understanding in such an integrated way. And maybe because it is so practical and so simple, you'll have the same experience with it. But when I was brought to what Ho'oponopono was actually getting at, I could see that it was just about that the divine, God, whatever you want to call it, it just wants to love us. It just wants to love us. It's only love. And so to be in kinship with that love is to cultivate a vessel in your own body, in your own mind, and in your own heart that is one of love, so that you can be in resonance with the divine love, so that you can be in sympathetic vibration with the divine love. And in that alignment puts you in fully in your own divinity, body, mind, and spirit. And from there, anything is possible. And so Ho'oponopono is about aligning body, mind, and spirit in that love, so that we can match the divine love, and then the divine love can most easily reach us.
What I love about Ho'oponopono is that when you get to the root of it, it's a very simple, basic prayer that can be done throughout your day. And so I've always felt like it was a pretty profound prayer to do as you're doing your walk.
Yeah, it's based on 4 phrases, which is actually not old Ho'oponopono. That's sort of the more modern version, the more simplified version that sort of began in the 80s. And the 4 phrases are: I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, and thank you. And I talk about in the book, I really break down what those phrases mean, how you say them, who you're saying it to, why you're saying them, because they all help remove the blemish of the problem. Because again, whatever the problem is, it was born of unlove. So you give this problem, I love you. You give this problem, I'm sorry, meaning I see you there. I see you. I see this hurt. You give this problem, please forgive me. Please forgive me for allowing you to create this problem. And you say thank you to this, as if to say, thank you for letting this go now. I'm in charge now, not the people who created this problem, not the circumstances that created this problem. And so you actually speak those 4 phrases to that child inside, to that hurt inside, to the part of you that learned something that that is mistaken about yourself. And those 4 phrases sort of cover the gamut of what that part of you needs to hear in order to know, okay, this is a case of mistaken identity here. I don't need to feel this way about myself. And you begin to let them go.
I love how you put that together, in the way that you did, because again, I mean, it's interesting coming from, if you come from Hawaii, the approach is like, of course, this is what we believe, and they're so connected to everything. And for the mainland, people on the mainland, it's like, okay, it's something that we really have to work at to get that feeling. It's like, okay, well, there is a divine power that actually loves me. A lot of people have problems with that.
That's right, and we are all so loved, and I can say that to you, and I hope that more than anything else, it ignites your curiosity to find out what I mean by that. But we really are all so loved, and we were, and as I speak about in the book, I would even go so far as to say that we were born from love, that we come from love, and I don't just mean the love that your mom and dad shared in your creation, that creation itself, that the world itself runs on love. When you talk about, again, this is the reason why I love shamanism. When you talk about the energy of the forest, that energy that is always moving towards growth and creation, what would fuel something that always moves towards growth and creation, that moves towards creating more of itself for the sake of creating more of itself, other than the power of love underneath that? And we are infused with that, and we are not separate from that.
So I know that you use in your book, you talk about Hawaiian cosmology.
Mm-hmm.
And, for people that have studied this, I mean, there's a vast amount of gods, goddesses, individuals and nature that they connect with.
Mm-hmm.
How did you decide or come across the themes that were there and use that for your book?
Well, a lot of it was just the land speaking to me. And there are certainly people, Hawaiian culturalists, who can speak more intelligently about Hawaiian cosmology than I can. I just tuned into something that made sense to me in terms of my shamanic brain. But, the land itself, to go to Hawaii is to ignite the imagination. Because when you go there, you kind of just can't believe what you're experiencing. And so there's a sense that you have to elicit your imaginative powers to even understand where you are. And everything is so alive there. And everything feels so conscious there, and the land itself, you can feel it. It almost has a, sort of a luminous, pulsating aura to it, and you can just feel a sense that it's a holy land, and that that nature is happening there. But the nature feels in some way even more alive and even more connected. In shamanism, we think of everything from an animistic point of view. And animism means that everything, every inanimate object, every tree, every flower, every drop of water is alive and conscious and responsive to our thoughts. And you just feel that so much in Hawaii, and I think that the islanders feel that. That's why they love their land so much, and they developed a psychological framework that helped them see reality through that matrix, through the sense of that the wind speaks to me, the moon speaks to me. When a rainbow comes, that's not just the rainbow. That's a god in manifest form. When I see the moon, that's the moon goddess. It's not just the moon. When I hear sounds of the wind, those are ancestors speaking to me. I can receive messages from them, and so there's just a sense of such aliveness and such fertile possibility there. And I think that the reason why I wrote about Hawaiian cosmology is that it's really the cosmology of nature as alive and sentient and in collaboration and conversation with us.
Well, that goes just right along with the shamanic path now, doesn't it?
That's right. Yeah.
It's easy to see why that was such an attraction because I mean, you can't go to Hawaii and not immerse yourself in nature. I mean, it is just stunning, you know.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. There's a phrase that the Hawaiians use called malama ka'aina, which means to love the land. And this is not just a phrase; it's sort of a rule on the islands to love the land as you would love a sibling or a parent. And it really speaks for the reverence of the land. And it doesn't just have to be Hawaii. Once you go outside, we can't escape nature. We are nature. It's just that there, I use that as sort of a metaphor of of what you can aspire to in your own life. You know, I talk about in the book about creating your own Hawaii, whatever that looks like for you. And because our thoughts and beliefs create our world, we can choose whatever thoughts and beliefs will create our own Hawaii.
So, Jonathan, I know people from all over the world contact you to work with you. What are some of the common themes that you see people reaching out to you about?
Not feeling their feelings, and what I mean by that is that they actually want to make a change in their life. They want to leave something. They want to put something behind them, but they can't they can't access the feelings that would actually say that are the truth. You know, our feelings tell the truth. Our feelings are connected to nature. And so, you know, if you have a feeling of, I hate my job, you have to feel it, even though it's unpleasant. If you have a feeling, I think that this marriage or this relationship might be over, you have to feel it. But there are so many reasons why we pull away from our feelings. We pull away from our bodies because we're scared about money, because how's it going to look, because what's my life going to look like, because of some other fear. And so more than anything else, it's about the work that I'm doing with people is helping them be in their nature, to be in their own truth, which may not look comfortable to your neighbors, which may look different than your family of origin. And that's absolutely fine. You know, a lot of times with clients, I'll say to them, you know, you're a little weird. And when I say that, I can see them bathed in relief. I can see the relief on their face, like, oh, I'm a little weird. Thank you. I don't have to fit in. I can just be me. And so it's about, so that's mainly the work that I do, is just getting people inside themselves, inside their body, inside their feelings, and letting their life emerge from that truth, from there, rather than from what is dictated to us by family, society, television, etc.
Well, I'm sure some people have been called worse things. So, you know,
yeah.
A little weird is good.
A little weird is good. That's right. That's right.
So, Jonathan, where can our listeners connect with you and learn about your work and your book and be part of your community?
Sure. So you can find my website, jonathanhammond.com. That's the easiest way. And I have classes and workshops, and you can schedule private sessions with me as well. The book, The Shaman's Mind, Huna Wisdom to Change Your Life, that is available anywhere where books are sold, certainly on Amazon. And that's the easiest way to get in touch. And I have classes. I have some virtual classes coming up where I actually go into a lot more detail about the Huna philosophy, and monthly gatherings, a whole bunch of things. So jonathanhammond.com.
Well, Jonathan, it's been such an honor to spend this time with you. Thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
Mahalo. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Jonathan. It has been such an honor to spend this time with you and to talk about your new book, The Shaman's Mind, Huna Wisdom to Change Your Life. The Shaman's Mind is available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and all indie retailers. And if you don't see it on the shelf, ask for them to order it. Again, if you'd like to connect with Jonathan, you can at mindbodyspiritnyc.com for more information. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I would like to thank everyone for tuning in. You're listening to Moments with Marianne. And remember, make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Moments with Marianne airs every Sunday, Monday, Thursday, and Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern and 5 p.m. Pacific Time. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.